I've been having a lot of poorly de-aged flashbacks about Anakin. Could be the Force, could be bad mushrooms. Either way, I'm good. I'm good. Greetings and welcome once again to Roman of the Empire. I am your host, Roman. Today we are talking about episode 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus, Star Wars. The last episode left us with the cliffhanger of Obi-Wan, Leia, Talia, and the pre-rebels fleeing Nur, but the delightful Riva has placed a tracker on infant Leia's little droid friend, so enabling Vader, the Empire, and the delightful Riva to track our friends. Now, this episode, remember, there's only one left. This episode, in the hands of competent writers, despite the canon-destroying material, could have been okay. Could have been okay. There was lots of action. There was a classic siege story with our small band of heroes facing overwhelming odds. Most of the effects are good. Some of them are terrible. Specifically, the flashbacks with Obi-Wan and Anakin to the Attack of the Clones era. So this is a short-haired Anakin with the ponytail going on, except he's, like 50 years old now. They didn't do the de-aging well. As soon as you see it, you're kind of like, oh, that's not good. And there's some other stuff that isn't done particularly well. There's some bad CGI going on. But it is what it is. As a story, like I said, the canon-destroying stuff, there's just no getting around it. But the basic story here on its own could have been okay, but it really wasn't great. And I'll attack all of the plot hole stuff later on. So let's dive into plot summary and spoilers, if we can even call them that. So we open in the past with a lightsaber training duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Again, this is when Anakin is a Padawan, and during the Clone Wars, specifically during Attack of the Clones. Obi-Wan is teaching Anakin that winning at all costs is not a good strategy. And we go back to the same opening scene several times in the episode as Obi-Wan or Anakin, Vader, are thinking about the other's moves, kind of like a chess game where you know your opponent. So, now we fade to Vader on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, and admittedly, this did look good. This looked a lot more like Star Wars, again, than most of what we've seen on the series. The delightful Riva makes an appearance, and she says she has tracked Obi-Wan to Jabim, which is the planet that we were on a couple episodes ago, where the pre-rebels have their base. And Vader promotes her to Grand Inquisitor, which is what she wanted, and they're off to Jabim. Obi-Wan gets a transmission from Bail Organa saying he knows that they're not supposed to have comms, which makes sense, but his silence was worrying him. Let's think about this for a second. No comms, silence. That's kind of the point, Bail. So he leaves Obi-Wan kind of a lengthy thing saying how he is afraid that, for Luke on Tatooine, so he's going there. So he said the words, Luke and Tatooine, or the other child, or the boy, something to that effect, and Tatooine. So these things are now on a transmission that is just floating around out there. So the pre-rebels are working to get everybody off of the planet. Vader shows up, orders the delightful Riva via Leia's droid toy friend to shut down the base. So little droid cuts a wire, the hangar doors close. They don't have a competent electrician who was able to resolve the problem. And the pre-rebels secured the base for an attack as a bunch of stormtroopers show up with giant guns to blast their way in. No one could open the doors, really. No one has that capability. I'm just throwing it out there that literally the base you guys operate, no one knows how to fix the one door that you need to have open to fly ships out of. Okay, that's fine. So, and for some reason, as the stormtroopers set up all their stuff, they're just hanging out waiting for the delightful Riva to show up and scream at them to fire. And it was, even she delivers that line, angry, fine. And then they start using the big guns. Great. So Obi-Wan decides he wants to talk to Riva through the closed door before they reach the base. So she agrees, and that's great negotiating. So they're both standing on either side of this big, thick metal door. And as they're talking, he realizes that she is one of the younglings that escaped the executions on Coruscant after Order 66 and Anakin came and killed everybody. She relays that she thought Anakin, when she was a small youngling, was there to save them, and instead, of course, he killed everyone. She hid amongst the dead, and she asked Obi-Wan where he was. Why didn't he come to save them? And clearly there's some resentment issues here. And then Obi-Wan deduces that Riva isn't really trying to work for Vader. She's hunting Vader. He offers to help, and she, instead of accepting the offer, cuts her way through the door with her lightsaber, which could have saved a lot of time in the beginning, and you didn't really need the stormtroopers to blast their way through. But either way, the door is now breached, and the attack starts in earnest. So the stormtroopers are blasting away at the pre-rebels, one of whom has a Wookiee crossbow, which I found interesting as a meaningless bit of nostalgia bait. And ultimately, Talia, who is one of the few characters who I like on this show, sacrifices herself with a thermal detonator to block off the line of attack. Okay. We get some more badly de-aged flashbacks in here. Vader orders them to halt the attack because he knows what Obi-Wan will do. He's going to surrender himself to save the others, which theoretically he probably could have done earlier and saved everyone from this attack, but that's neither here nor there. So he does. And while waiting for Vader to show up, Obi-Wan tells the delightful Riva that he's not surrendering to Vader, but bringing him to her. Because he figures Vader will be so fixated on Obi-Wan, that Riva will have her chance to kill him. It's not a terrible strategy. They got there in kind of a screwed up long way, but whatever. And for some reasons, two stormtroopers take Obi-Wan back inside the compound and close the doors. And of course, he quickly subdues them and rejoins the pre-rebels and infant Leia, who has fixed the hangar doors. And, I'm sorry, I need to backtrack slightly here. So before Obi-Wan turns himself over to the Riva, the delightful Riva, I apologize, my mind wandered. Could be the Force. Could be bad mushrooms. Either way, I'm good. He handed over his lightsaber and comm device. Remember the comm device that he got the message from Bail on, to fake Jedi from episode 1 of this series. Because he's now on this planet because he's on the run. So he hands him his stuff and says, hang on to this shit, I'll be back. And so he has all of this stuff. So, where have I gone? Oh, yes, of course. So, although the pre-rebels are getting on the ships during the kerfuffle, fake Jedi guy drops the comm device. That's important. It's on the ground. So now Vader shows up. He enters the base. He sees what he thinks is Obi-Wan's transport. And this scene itself isn't horrible, but the CGI isn't good. The idea is good. The CGI is not good. and pulls the ship down and destroys it, which really shows Vader's force power. He can pull down a whole freaking ship. But, oh gosh, he's been duped. Behind the ship, there's another ship which blasts off and has everyone on it. Vader couldn't figure that out. Okay, great. So during this moment, the delightful Riva uses this as her moment to attack. Vader's like, nah, and blocks the attack. They have a fairly decent fight. Vader overwhelms her with both force and lightsaber power, though. She's no match for him. And he tells her that he knew she was a youngling. He wasn't being duped by her. He was just letting her play her part in this, and she did. So, haha, and then he runs her through with a lightsaber. Classic Vader. And then we do get a surprise when the Grand Inquisitor, the prior Grand Inquisitor, the proper Grand Inquisitor, walks in and basically says some clever stuff. And then he and Vader and the Stormtroopers walk out of the hangar bay, leaving wounded Riva, not dead Riva, there. Because no one survived this kind of thing before. Grand Inquisitor. While Riva's on the deck, she sees the comm device now damaged. She presses it, and it plays part of the message, relaying basically the Tatooine is important. So she now knows this. And while while Obi-Wan and the pre-rebels are escaping, first of all, the hyperdrive on their ship is down. That's not good. And now he has a disturbance in the Force kind of vibe going on because Riva now knows about this. But he's like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. Oh, okay. And that's where we end the episode. Remember, there's only one left, folks. There were a lot of bad plot devices in this episode. The flashbacks could have been fine, but the de-aging was so bad, it distracted from the scene itself, which is used many times. Same scene, but different times in the episode. But like I said, the de-aging just really took you out of the moment. It's like, oh my God, he looks like a 50-year-old Padawan. Leia's the best one to fix the door. The 10-year-old, who is probably a 4-year-old, is the best one to get in there because she's the smallest one. So sure, she can fit, but she's the most qualified. You don't have droids. You don't have anything else that could do this. Fine, got it. Obi-Wan could have turned himself in, as I said earlier, preventing a lot of the attack stuff. You end up with the same result, ultimately. And Vader just waits too long to go for Obi-Wan. Riva's essentially incompetent with her entire strategy, and it's a mess. It ends up being a mess. Like I said, could have been okay, ends up being a mess. So one more episode from the crown jewel of Disney plus Star Wars. So tune in at 5 p.m. PST on the Creative Blue Collar Guys channel tomorrow, Thursday, for our weekly live stream, where we're going to discuss this and more future Star Wars stuff. God help us, in depth. So that's all for now. But this has been Roman of the Empire. Please like and subscribe. Signing off. Be kind.